Hi guys, today is March 25th, 2020. If you wrote down the checklist from earlier, you can, at the end of this video, you can check off that you did your writer's workshop video for today. And we're gonna start with our learning intentions for today. So I'm gonna share my screen so you can see that. And here we go. So if you recall yesterday, what we worked on was incorporating 3 different dialogue tag forms. So we had dialogue tag A, dialogue tag B, and dialogue tag C. So you should have at least 10 examples of dialogue throughout your story. And I want to highlight Emily because she sent me a picture of her fairy tale, and I was very excited to read it. So good job, Emily. So we're going to start with our learning intentions. And we have a guest here, Ariel. Just young. Okay, so learning intention. Today we will explore different dialogue tags in order to enrich our writing. Success criteria. I can replace many of my sets with better dialogue tags which show how a character said something in your fairy tale adaptation. So at the beginning of the year when you guys wrote your personal narratives in Spanish, remember we said dijo se murió, and in English we also said said is dead. And it's not that said is not a good word, but there are many other dialogue tags that we can use to really show how a character is feeling throughout a story. Our language intention, remember you can repeat after me. I asked myself, what dialogue tag would be better here? How does the character say this dialogue? And our social intention for today, and as always, I do the work even when no one is looking. So I'm going to look at my recipe card. I know for step number 1, I have to reread my fairy tale thus far. That's my first step. I like to read what I've written so far so I have an idea of where I'm going and what I need to edit. So I'm going to start by reading what I have so far. So remember, this is my story for Catarella. The sun was high in the sky, and pink clouds lingered over Catarella's 2-story brick house in Manhattan, New York. Sparrows sang perched on honey locust trees. Butterflies fluttered their brightly colored wings as Catarella sang in her garden, pruning her white roses. Catarella was a very beautiful gray cat with a thick coat and lovely eyes the color of emeralds. Catarella had lost her mother as a child to sickness, and she lived with her papa cat. She was a good daughter. She cleaned all of her litter boxes and made mouth-watering meals for her papa like rat stew and fish soup. However, Papa Cat was lonely and he longed to have a wife again. A few weeks later, Papa Cat signed up for a dating app called Perfect Match in order to find a wife. He went on many dates before he finally met a beautiful white Persian cat with piercing blue eyes, blue like glaciers. Her name was Mimi, and she enjoyed long walks on the beach, candlelit tuna dinners, and she herself had 2 adorable calico kittens, Zoe and Chloe. Papa Cat fell in love with Mimi and soon married her. Papa, it makes me smile to see you so happy with your new wife, Catarella whispered to her papa. But Catarella's happiness would soon wither away like a rose in the middle of winter. As soon as Mimi and her daughters moved in, everything went wrong. When Papa Cat wasn't looking, Mimi and her 2 daughters would be very cruel to Catarella. Why is there so much poop in my litter box? Catarella asked her stepsisters. Because we felt like pooping in your litter box. Your box is nicer than ours. One day, Catarella was searching for her favorite mouse toy when she spotted Zoe ripping the threads off of her toy. Zoe, why must you destroy my toy? This is your toy. It's so old. I felt like destroying something today. She yawned. Chloe, Catarella asked, may I get my pillow back? You're kidding, right? This is my pillow now. Chloe said firmly. Catarella would mysteriously find white long hairs on her favorite dresses in her closet. She would cry at night, meowing softly into her pillow, wondering, Papa, why did you choose to marry Minnie? Despite their wickedness, she remained kind to them. One day, Papa Cat had to fly to Kathmandu on a business trip. Day in and day out, poor Catarella was forced to do all the chores for her malicious stepmother and stepsisters. Catarella was unhappy and disliked her stepmother and stepsisters very, very much. A few evenings later, Catarella was returning from a hunt when she saw a fancy invitation on the door from Meow the Prince. The invitation said the family of the house was invited to a cat ball at the Kitty Suite in the Empire State Building and to wear elegant gowns. There would be mouth-watering sushi, scrumptious tuna bites, and all kinds of delicious cat treats. Catarella sprinted in, meowing, unable to contain her excitement. Guys, we've been invited to a ball. Oh, I can't wait to go and dance and prance with the prince. Catarella, what makes you think you're going? You don't own any pretty dresses. Well, I'm a great seamstress. I can make a gown out of yarn. Catarella painfully replied, looking down at her tired paws. The stepmother glared at Catarella and rudely said, well, let's see if you can make your fancy gown in time for the ball. Catarella worked really hard. She began by taking out her knitting needles and going to the yarn shop in town. Her stepmother and stepsisters had stolen much of her money, so with the little money she had, she chose bright blue yarn the color of peacock feathers and wove a beautiful dress in time for the ball. She made a crown out of daisies and dahlias from her garden and painted her tiny claws a sky blue. On the day of the ball, she went downstairs to proudly show her dress to her stepmother and her stepsister. Catarella did indeed look gorgeous, and she purred with joy. Minnie, Zoe, and Chloe were doing some finishing touches on their dresses when their eyes fell on Catarella. Catarella asked, ladies, what do you think of my outfit? I made it myself. That is pretty, said Zoe. Yes, it is pretty for now, growled Minnie while looking at her daughters. Zoe and Chloe immediately understood what Mother wanted them to do. They began to circle Catarella. Zoe lied. You have some yarn hanging. Zoe and Chloe pulled the yarn, Catarella's dress coming apart. Chloe left a disgusting hairball in the torn parts of Catarella's dress, ruining it even more. Minnie locked eyes with Catarella and sat on the floor on her tattered dress. That's too bad, Catarella, Minnie spat. It was pretty. Catarella was devastated as she watched Minnie, Zoe, and Chloe leave for the ball. Her tears clouded her eyes and spilled on the floor as she wished out loud, oh, I wish I could go to the ball. Oh, how I wish it so. Okay, here we go. I lost it. Okay. The floor suddenly started to tremble and a sweet song started to play out of thin air. Out of thin air appeared a cat fairy. Catarella could not believe her eyes. It was Paws, the fairy cat mother. My dear,
why did you cry so intensely?
said Paws, the cat mother. Paws, I thought you were a make-believe for my fairy tale books. Are you really my fairy cat mother? Paws laughed with delight.
Of course I am, Catarella. I'm here to help you to get a ball on time.
Catarella said, but my wicked stepmother and stepsisters tore my dress apart. It's ruined. Paws looked at the destroyed dress and said with a smile, well,
I have a magic wand, and I think I can make a pretty dress in no time.
Paws swirled her magic wand around Catarella, and magic fairy dust floated in the air as Catarella's blue yarn dress began to transform into a dazzling, bright sky blue dress. Catarella suddenly had a touch of pink blush on her cheeks, and a diamond collar appeared around her neck. Catarella glanced in the mirror and was amazed. The tears from her eyes had disappeared, and her reflection showed a very, very elegant cat. Oh, thank you, Paws, my fairy cat mother. I will run to the ball now. Oh.
No, you will not. I will turn the pumpkin into a carriage and the neighborhood dogs into horses. Those pesky dogs are just sleeping in the yard anyway. You look like a princess now, and I do not want you to tear that dress.
Catarella nodded.
Oh, Catarella, before you leave, remember you must leave the castle by midnight. Once the clock strikes 12 o'clock, your dress will be transformed back into your torn one.
I promise to leave by midnight. Thank you, fairy cat mother.
You're welcome.
And we're going to pause it for a second. So remember that our learning intention today is that set is dead, and we're going to replace some of our sets with a better dialogue tag. And so you should have this organizer in your writer's notebook. I'm going to share my screen again so you guys can see it. Yeah, you should definitely have this in your, not your writer's notebook maybe, but your writer's folder. Look for it. And if you don't, it's okay. I'm gonna just make it bigger. And if you need to pause and like copy some of this down later, you can. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back to the part that I added this morning to my story, to Catarella, and I'm going to highlight said, because if I go back to my recipe card, step number 2 is underline or highlight all of your saids. And then I'm gonna look at my organizer for said is dead, and I'm gonna think to myself, how do the characters say this? Do they whisper it? Do they yell it? Are they joyful? Are they frustrated? Etc. And then you're gonna replace your said with a better dialogue tag. So I'm going to this last part that I added. The floor suddenly started to tremble and a sweet song started to play. Out of thin air appeared a cat fairy. Catarella could not believe her eyes. It was Paws, the fairy cat mother. My dear, why do you cry so intensely? Said Paws, the cat mother. Well, here's one of my first sets. I'm going to highlight it. And I'm going to highlight my sets, go through it, and then I'm going to go back and see how I can change it. I thought you were make-believe from the fairy tale books. Are you really my fairy cat mother? Paws laughed with delight. Of course, I am, Catarella. I'm here to get you to the ball in time, Catarella said. Here's another side. You'll be surprised at how many sides you have. But my wicked stepmother and stepsisters tore my dress apart. It's ruined. Paws looked down at her destroyed dress and said with a smile. Here's another side. Well, I have a magic wand and I think I can make a pretty dress in no time. So I'm just gonna focus on those 3. And my dear, why do you cry so intensely? Said Paws. Really, she's asking a question. So instead of said, I'm gonna write asked Paws, the cat mother. Paws, I thought you were make-believe from my fairy tale books. Are you really my fairy cat mother? Paws laughed with delight. Of course I am, Catarella. I'm here to help you get to the ball on time. Catarella said, well, she's responding. So I'm gonna say replied. Catarella replied. Well, maybe she's still crying. Replied with tears in her eyes. But my wicked stepmother and stepsisters tore my dress apart. It's ruined. Paws looked down at her destroyed dress and said with a smile, well, I have a magic wand and I think I can make a pretty dress in no time. So instead of, maybe she responded as well. Responded or replied. Let's do responded. Responded with a smile. I know I have a few more sides in my story that I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna go and highlight and I'm gonna replace it with a better dialogue tag. But now it's your turn to reread your fairy tale, highlight, underline all of those sets, cross them out, and look at that said is dead organizer. I'm gonna leave it up here right now really quickly so you can see it again. And yeah, figure out which one you wanna replace with. There's so many different ways to say said instead of using said. So like if you're happy, maybe they exclaimed or they giggled or they cheered. If they're worried, maybe they begged, they trembled. If they're angry, maybe they argued or they yelled or they snapped or they screamed. If they're sad, they sobbed or they whined or they bawled, which I just noticed is misspelled. So 1 second, let me spell that correctly really quickly. For the word bald. And that is a homophone because there's bald when like somebody is bald, and then there's like bald when you're crying. But I just noticed that is a big spelling error. So that is how you spell bald when somebody cries intensely. All right, make sure you fix that. If you have that one on your organizer, please fix it for me. We'll see you guys in the next video. I can't wait to see some of your fairy tales. I am going to be highlighting fairy tales very soon and reading another student's fairy tale on a YouTube video. So make sure you stay tuned for that. See you in the next video.